I don't have anything prepared for the introduction of this one. All I have to say right now is, man, what the fuck?
It's a Friday once again.
Hello, my fellow freaks, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you have all had a great week. Continuing our month of animated horror, we are about to cover a film that I always told myself I would never watch. Not because it's too, disturbing or too intense, not because of, well, I mean, I guess probably kind of because of the content within the film. But it's not that any of this content is, incredibly disturbing compared to a lot of the other things that we have covered on this channel. Rather, I always told myself that I didn't want to watch this movie ever, because the few times that I've heard people talk about it, man, it just seemed so depressing and so dark. This is one of those films that I kind of always avoided because I had a feeling it was gonna make me cry really, really hard. In fact, I didn't want to review this so much that I came really close to replacing it with another animated feature that I'm also interested in. Very close. I came very close to replacing this film. But I said, stop. STARGUTZZZ, you have covered things on this channel. You have seen things on this, for doing content on this channel that are way worse than anything you could see from this film. So I said, STARGUTZZZ, if you have the guts to go out and attempt reading Mei-chan's daily life, the manga, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be watching and reviewing this film that doesn't even have nearly even close to as taboo subjects as Mei-chan. Mei-chan, whatever. I cover disturbing cinema, and I think it depends on the iceberg that you look at, but I do think that this week's film is typically included within the disturbing movie iceberg, and it's also, even though I didn't want to cry, it's also probably the tamest choice on the iceberg compared to a lot of other things that we've also already watched. So really, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. Buck the fuck up. Watch this movie. So here we are today talking about Raymond Briggs' When the Wind Blows from 1987 and directed by Jimmy T. Murakami. Murakami? Is that it? I've had a rough day. If I pronounced that wrong, just tell me in the comments. Which, by the way, I didn't realize going into it that this film is based off of a book, or I guess more specifically it's based off of a graphic novel. And because sometimes I like to read the literature that film is from so that I can compare the two, I did not know about the graphic novel in enough time to be able to do that here. However, I did find a PDF on it online, and I skimmed through the first few pages, and it was enough to realize that unless there are major changes later on, the graphic novel and the film are basically the exact same. Maybe that is something that we can continue to discuss later on this channel. I'm very open to talking about books themselves. Wink, wink for future plans. And also, fun fact, David Bowie does the opening song for When the Wind Blows, and I wondered, did he do this song specifically for the film, or is it just like a coincidence that he has a song where some of the lyrics are When the Wind Blows? Turns out he was initially, I think the song was made specifically for the film because he was supposed to do more songs for this film, and I think it fell through for scheduling purposes, whatever, I don't know. I just thought that was cool that David Bowie does the intro song. Yeah. Fun fact before we all start getting super depressed and super irritated. But first, if you are new here, hi, my name is STARGUTZZZ. Any kind of crashing, running, or loud noises that you may hear going on in the background, those are my cats. Also, my movie reviews tend to be more of a discussion of elements that I find to be good or bad about a piece, rather than just giving you this full play-by-play of every single little thing that happens in it. So in other words, I do try to refrain from spoilers as much as possible, but they will arise as they pertain to the discussion that I'd like to have with the film. If you would like to watch When the Wind Blows before or after this review, you can do so on our very good best friend Tubi TV. We are not sponsored by Tubi, at least not yet, but I will provide a link to being able to watch it on Tubi in the description below so that it is that much easier for you to go out and watch When the Wind Blows, if you so choose. So now, I guess with all of those pleasantries out of the way, let's start being depressed. Before we go into my version of the synopsis of this film, I do want to include a very quick side note. So in the credits for the film, the husband's character is named Jim, specifically on IMDb, and whenever I look up sources about it, they refer to the husband as Jim. Here's the thing. When I don't know if I have watched if Tubi has a different version of this film or what. I don't know what it is. Every source calls him Jim, and yet when I watched it, his wife, Hilda, kept calling him James.
Well, you are retired, James. What are you talking about, James?
So, even though it might not be accurate, what I kept hearing was James. What the subtitles even called him was James. Everywhere outside of the film calls him Jim. Because I heard James through 3 rewatches, and I have James in my notes, and I didn't know that it's technically or supposed to be Jim until way afterwards. I'm just gonna call him James. I just want to give that side note. Let's do the synopsis. When the Wind Blows follows the lives of a middle-aged British couple, James and Hilda Bloggs, as they prepare for a nuclear attack from Russia. To aid in their preparation, the couple follows pamphlets given by the government on how to survive the impact of a nuclear bomb. However, these ill-informed pamphlets act more as a security blanket to keep the minds of British civilians at ease than they do provide real advice for surviving an attack. Despite this bad advice, James and Hilda end up surviving the blast, and the audience watches as they not only struggle to comprehend the devastation of a nuclear blast, but also as the radiation slowly affects their health. So, as I said, I had always made the decision that I didn't want to watch this because I do actually cry pretty easy. Believe it or not, I do cry easily. And this film, where we just watch a very wholesome and adorable middle-aged couple very, very slowly die of radiation, yeah, that didn't sound like a fun time for me. I thought 100% I would be sobbing during this film. And listen, it is depressing. It's a very depressing film. But upon my first watch, I did not cry because I was more so utterly flabbergasted over the stupidity of James and Hilda. We will be getting into it very shortly, but oh my god, do they not know what a nuclear bomb is? I think the one thing that does stand out a lot about this film is how cute it is, despite the very dark subject matter. As the film progresses, things do get darker and grimier and more morbid. However, those first 30 minutes of the film are very bright, very cheery, and happy. The art style of this film is very reminiscent of an art style that you would see in like a children's book or even within a children's film, where all of the characters and colors are very soft, they're round, everything is bright, beautiful, and sweet, and just like there's this layer of wholesomeness. Like everything is so soft, so bright. Even the husband, who is a middle-aged man, he just looks like a giant baby. It's a wholesome, sweet child book illustration. At least that's what I see when I see this film. And it does get pretty sad to watch that bright, wholesome, round, cherry tone slowly delve into those morbid themes of, hey, we're watching these people very slowly die of radiation. But obviously, I think this art style was extremely intentional to help get the point of the film across. I absolutely love the animation of this film, and I adore the fact that the Bloggs' home is a physical set. Now, it's not like a full-size set. I think it's very apparent that it's like dollhouse sized, but still, it is a physical set with 2D animation laid over it, and whenever necessary, sometimes a door hinge or a piece of furniture will be done in stop motion to help create the effect that this 2D person is moving a physical object within this like dollhouse, pretty much. I thought the blend of making the house like an actual physical location for these 2D characters to be within, I thought that blend of stop motion and 2D, I thought that was really cool. And it's also very beautifully done, very seamlessly done. I'm very impressed with the craftsmanship behind this film. It's very beautiful and very pleasant to look at. As I said, it follows the same tone of like a child storybook. But after the nuclear blast goes off, there is a very great contrast of colors that we get to see, because as the home starts out very bright and vivid, after the blast, we get to see the contrast of color and how things have just deteriorated and lost their color within a flash, a literal flash. I love the visuals of When the Wind Blows, and as I said, I do think having these specific round, wholesome, soft visuals helps to create a bigger impact of what is happening in the narrative to the audience. Now, this is a very political piece, and I will be discussing some of the political impacts of this film, but please, 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 I beg of you, keep in mind, I am a dumbass on the internet and by no means an expert on this topic. I am some weirdo on the internet that just likes to talk about movies. I'm not a history teacher. In regards to the politicalness of When the Wind Blows, I'm probably going to be a little bit surface level here, again, just because I'm not an expert. But I will be pointing out what I do know, what I have learned. Just know if you're wanting like a full historical breakdown of the timeliness of this film, this is probably not the video for you. Like I said, it's gonna be very surface level. Anyway, this is just a disclaimer before going forward, and the reason that I'm providing this disclaimer is because how is it pronounced? Now I have so many comments. I think it's funny. I have so many comments about my pronunciation during the Sallow video. How is it pronounced? Hold on.
AnnounceNames.com.
Taló. Taló.
Okay, side quest over. On my Sallow video, I at one point had like this massive schizo comment, which isn't even there anymore. Mind you, I did not delete the comment. There's only ever been one comment that I deleted it, but I know I didn't delete this one because I just thought it was crazy. My point here being, because when I reviewed Sallow, the comment is no longer on the video, but I distinctly remember shortly after I uploaded that video, somebody left a massive comment about my lack of historical knowledge surrounding the film. And so that is why I am providing this disclaimer here that I am not a historical expert by any means. Do not expect that from me. Do not expect that from this channel. I will do my best with what I learn quickly while writing a review, but I don't know everything about everything, even if I sit here and try. I just want to talk about the fucking movie. Okay, let's talk about When the Wind Blows. So, as I said, I ended up not crying during this film, at least not the way that I expected to cry when watching this. Instead, I felt extremely frustrated by James and Hilda on my first watch. Like, I was constantly screaming at the screen because of how stupid and naive these British motherfuckers are. Yes, it is extremely sad. Yes, it is a depressing story, and it is tragic. I acknowledge that, but oh my god, do they not know what a nuclear bomb is? They don't know what a nuclear bomb is. How do they not know? How do they not know? They hear the word bomb and they begin reminiscing about bombings during World War II and their old like bunkers and shelters, like the Morrison shelter or whatever the fucking hole in the ground is, which a hole in the ground would have been more effective against a nuclear bomb than This movie was so irritating on my first watch. I couldn't feel sad on my first watch because I was so heavily focused on how stupid James and Hilda are. They hear the word bomb and they're thinking of bombs from World War II that just destroyed buildings. Still horrible, still very devastating, but a bomb that destroys several buildings is way different than a bomb that melts everything within like 100-mile radius of its blast. You know, World War II bombs destroyed buildings. Nuclear bombs destroy everything. So they are preparing for nuclear warfare as if it's World War II. And I was continually shocked of their mindsets, especially after the nuke goes off and they can literally see the devastation around them. Even when the destruction of a nuclear blast is right in front of their eyes, they are still so fucking stupid. I found myself screaming. I was screaming at the screen as James and Hilda discussed topics such as the lateness of the postman or the lateness of the milkman.
The milkman's not been yet. He's late.
Oh, well, that's logical. He'd bound a bit late after the bomb.
The road's gone all funny. Seems to have melted a bit.
I expect that's why the milkman's late. He's got stuck somewhere.
How the newspaper was late. They discussed like, oh, the newspaper didn't even run yesterday. I wonder why. I wonder why. Or let's talk about how when they thought after the nuclear blast that they still expected their television to work, even though they, I feel like, obviously don't have electricity.
We may see our bomb on the news. No. All dead.
No picture?
No.
Not even just the voices?
No. Nothing. All dead. Funny. The electric's off too. Still, that's bound to be.
Same goes for the phone. Like, if the stove isn't working, and the radio isn't working, and the phone isn't working, and the television isn't working, how many more things are they gonna check to see if it's working before they realize?
The grass looks a funny colour.
Yes, I'll pop down to Mr. Sponge's tomorrow and get some bone meal and dried blood.
He may be closed due to the bomb, dear.
What, old Sponge? Miss a day's trade? Oh, not him. He'd rather die.
Oh my god. It is like they expected this bomb to go off and for it to not change it's a single aspect of their average daily lives. It is incredible. It is so incredibly naive. And while watching it, each time I watched it, I realized James and Hilda are the exact definition of someone being blissfully ignorant. Or, you know, they are an example of ignorance is bliss. These people are like, I think probably in their 50s when the narrative is happening. And yet they are like children. They have a child's naivety. They are naive about the world around them, the world that they live in. They are 50 years old and they think like children. In fact, it is so bad that even as they are dying, which I don't feel like is a spoiler at all, it is the entire purpose of this film is the fact that this middle-aged couple is very slowly dying of radiation. Their blissful ignorance is so bad that even as they are dying, they maintain a very stupid level of optimism. And honestly, good for them. Tell me, which would you rather be? Would you rather be in their situation and be stressed as fuck because you know exactly what's happening? Or would you rather be blissfully ignorant and remain happy and optimistic even as you are very, very obviously dying? Maybe if you're stuck in that situation, maybe it is best that you're stupid, right? But it is not only the way that this couple is expecting the world around them to be unchanged after a nuclear blast that is kind of irritating to listen to, but it is also their perspective on war in general that can be especially mind-boggling, specifically when it is coming from James. You see, James romanticizes war and politics a lot, pretty much throughout the entire film. And while he technically knows his history and knows of important events, mostly World War II, he kind of looks at it with the perspective of rose-tinted glasses. Whenever we hear James talk about war, soldiers, being in a war, in anything to do with war, it seems like he is solely seeing it from a heroic perspective and not a realistic one. Why do I think this? Well, it's probably because he seems to act like he can't even fathom the idea of random casualties happening in a war. I think the audience sees this the best whenever he becomes utterly shocked, even just at the idea, at the notion that an enemy soldier could walk up to his home and either shoot or imprison him and his wife for no reason.
Well, if I saw a ruskie coming down the lane, I'd bang the gong, if we had one.
Wouldn't he shoot you, dear?
What, just for banging a gong?
He'd be well within his rights to shoot you if there's a war on.
Oh, crumbs. You really think so? Just for banging a gong?
He is like, what? Do you really think they would come into our home and shoot us? Do you really think that enemy soldiers would just shoot us? We didn't even do anything.
You mean to say, if one of them comes through that door this afternoon, I'm supposed to try and kill him?
Well, not you, James. After all, you're retired.
Gee, I wonder if the enemy soldiers will shoot us! Yes! Yes! Yes, that's what they're going to do! What do you mean? Whenever moments like these happen, or when he's imagining himself being in the war, again, just from a heroic perspective, not even considering the fact that people die in war, it really makes you wonder, what does James think happens in war? You know what I mean? Because he doesn't really seem to acknowledge the fact that people die during war. And then when he is confronted with the notion that it might happen, he is super, utterly shocked. So, James, what do you think war is? People die constantly in war. Yes, even random civilians living in their home. Even though I was shocked over their expectations of like a store being open or the telephone working or the TV working after a nuclear blast, I don't think any of that shocked me quite as much as James's mindset regarding war. Like the nuclear bomb, I think in a way is understandable. Nuclear bombs and warfare is something somewhat new to them, right? With the only example up to that point being the nuclear bombs in Japan. But the thing is, knowledge of war in general, especially when these two, we see evidence in the film, they spent their childhoods surviving World War II in Britain. So the idea of war in general is something that should not be completely unfamiliar to them, and yet they still see it with a very naive perspective. They should know what actually happens in war, but they don't. And yes, I'm using James as like the big example here, but Hilda is definitely not any better. James just is more outward about talking about war and the army and the government. Hilda more so is of the mindset that a written letter or a cup of tea will cause a ceasefire.
Dear Sir, Mr. B.J. thing, we the people of Britain are fed up with being bombed. We had enough of it last time with old Hitler, so will you just leave us in peace? You live your life and we'll live ours. Hope you are well. Please don't drop any bombs. Yours sincerely, Mr. and Mrs. J. Bloggs.
Very good, dear.
Wow. Like I said, these people think the way that children think. They're so naive about the world that they are literally living in. And while I do find it irritating and shocking to listen to James and Hilda struggle to understand the world that they have lived in for over 50 years, it's not without a purpose. You see, because the Bloggses, or the Bloggs family, are caricatures of adults who have total blind faith in their government and listen to or trust everything that they are told or taught. The reason for their intense stupidity or lack of knowledge of literally the world that they live in, I think is partially related to this blind trust or this blind faith that the government has their citizens' best interest in mind, which I think in 2026, I hope we all know that's not the truth. And I do think this could be something that goes as far back as what they might have been taught in school. And the reason that I say that is because in the film, they seem to know about Hiroshima, but they exhibit not having a very good understanding of what actually happened in Hiroshima. You know what I mean? Like, they know that it happened, but they don't really know.
People died ages later. I forget exactly why.
Perhaps they didn't take precautions.
Yes. I expect they neglected to do the correct thing and anyway, that was years ago. Science was in its infancy. We're better equipped to deal with the situation in the light of modern scientific knowledge.
James and Hilda both are very certain that their government has their best interests and their safety in mind. In fact, throughout the whole film, they discuss how Britain will overcome and succeed, or how they'll be swiftly rescued and healed.
When the medics get through, they'll probably just spray us with some antidote, give us a couple of pills, and in no time, we'll be as right as rain.
And the film uses the aforementioned pamphlets to not only get across the Bloggs' blind trust in their government, but also to showcase how the government is misinforming their people. Throughout the film, James goes through a never-ending list of supplies and must-dos that the British government has provided for its citizens. And a lot of the advice given in these pamphlets or leaflets range from silly and pointless to a little bit dark. Some of the tips for survival that seemed especially pointless and ineffective to me were things such as painting windows white and using doors and pillows in place of shelter from nuclear blast. Now, maybe I don't know a whole lot about the window thing. Maybe painting the windows white does something for a nuclear blast, but in my mind, I don't think painting the windows white is going to keep the windows from like blowing out, which is what happens. So when he was, again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is something to it, but in my mind, painting a window white does not stop it from being exploded inwards into your house from the blast. And then likewise with using doors and pillows as a makeshift shelter from the blast. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain that in order to survive a nuke, you have to be underground. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a way to survive a nuke without going underground. A couple of doors leaned up against a wall with pillows on top of it is not going to stop radiation. And then there is some darker advice, such as the paper bags. Now, this is going to be a short spoiler section because it has to do sort of with the ending of the film. So I will put a timestamp up right here, but also this is the last discussion point of this section. Either go to this timestamp or just skip on to the next chapter if you do not want to be spoiled on the ending. So one of the protective measures given in these leaflets is for the person to cover themselves in paper bags, or like to put themselves within a paper bag. In this case, it is like potato sacks. And this is supposed to further protect people from the blast and from radiation. Also, it suggests putting important documents such as birth certificates and medical cards within a box in a safe place. And this information is given within the leaflet under the guise of citizens protecting themselves and protecting their important documents. However, there are some theories or thoughts out there that the intentions for the government telling people to place themselves within paper bags and protect their important documents has a much darker and morbid purpose. Some believe that people were told to do this both to comfort civilians as they prepare for nuclear warfare, but also so that after the nuke hits, the collection of bodies would be easier. Not only are the dead people pretty much already in their own bags or coffins, but their important information for identifying them is easily accessible and right there. Don't know how true this is, right? But those are some thoughts and theories that people have out there regarding this advice in the film. For me, it's really, I don't think that's very difficult to believe, if I'm being honest. Like, yeah, of course, trick people into putting themselves in their own body bags and then providing their own identification so we know who died. It would not shock me in the slightest. But it's also incredibly sad as we reach the finale of the film, because we do, as, you know, we don't literally watch James and Hilda die, but we know that it's inevitable. And so not the literal last shot of the film, but the last moments of the film are the couple being very close to death, and they decide to put themselves within those bags and return to their makeshift shelter, which is basically like a tomb. And realizing that they're putting themselves in these bags to perhaps make cleanup easier, it just creates another morbid, sad layer to what's happening. Like, yeah, this whole section was me ranting about how fucking stupid the couple is, but I don't know how, I almost want to say how much of it is their fault, but on one hand, some of it is kind of their fault for not wanting to learn beyond what their own government tells them. I don't know. It's just back to the discussion of, like, the blind faith that James and Hilda have in their government and putting themselves into these bags for protection in their final moments. It just, they put themselves in these bags still completely full of naive optimism that the government is going to come rescue them and heal them and make them better. And what they don't realize is that the government doesn't give a fuck about them. Like, I think I already said it, but like, they die maintaining a stupid level of optimism and faith within their government that doesn't give two shits about them. And I think that is like the cherry on top to how depressing this can be. As I said earlier, When the Wind Blows is a very political film, and it is definitely timely to when it came out, since it directly covers the Cold War. However, while it was timely to the time that it came out, I also feel like it is timeless, just because that fear and threat of nuclear warfare is not a thing of the past. It is something that is still very relevant today. Both the graphic novel and the film were created within the mists of the Cold War, with the intentions of showcasing the true effects of nuclear war to those who, again, are probably very ill-informed thanks to their government. And this showcases not only how catastrophic it can be, but also to show exactly how useless these government pamphlets are. I'm not, like, exactly one for obsessing over political films, but this one is so brilliantly done. Because as I said, James and Hilda are very naive characters of real adults that exist within our world who are misinformed or have blind faith in the government. They are naive, dumb adults who literally just go with whatever. They said, oh, our government said it. It's true. 100%, no doubt in my mind. Couldn't be me. And I'm gonna be honest, I would assume at the time that this happened, there were probably many people in Great Britain that had the same mindsets of James and Hilda. And that is more than likely the reason or purpose for this film being made in the first place.
I wonder if it's all over already. If it is all over, I wish I'd knew who'd won.
We can't have lost the war, can we, James? We won the other two.
No, of course not.
And, you know, because the Bloggses are very childlike in their belief system, adults who really exist that fit the mold of James and Hilda probably did really need the war explained to them in this manner for it to finally click to them and for them to finally care. Or what I mean here is, remember how I said that James and Hilda know about Hiroshima, but they don't exactly seem very well informed of what exactly happened in Hiroshima?
People in Hiroshima with pattern clothes got burned where the pattern was, and not so much on the white bits. Even the buttons showed up.
Yes, but they were Japanese.
I I am very willing to bet that not only James and Hilda, but people who match their mold needed to see the effects of nuclear war happening to people like them in order to care. Because they are so far detached from Japan or being Japanese that they just can't empathize, they can't sympathize, they can't put themselves into another person's shoes just because they live in a different place and are a different race. They needed to see James and Hilda, who are like them, and how they are affected by nuclear bombs in order to send the message home. Right? Does that make sense? It's like they can't fathom the horrors that happened in Japan, but if you put, I hate to say it, but if you put a white person in the same place, then suddenly it clicks. Then suddenly, oh no, this is bad, right? Oh no, wait, this is bad. We shouldn't do this. Now, I have learned empathy. To me, I think the most amazing part of this film is the fact that it actually made a difference in the outcome of the Cold War. At least it is a partial reasoning, I think, for the end of the Cold War. From what I understand, 3 years after When the Wind Blows came out in Germany, the Berlin Wall came down, and very shortly after that, the war was over entirely. Yeah, 3 years, but that's still 3 years. 3 years is a long time. But considering that the Cold War, I think, had been going on since the 40s, yeah, it being done within 3 years of this film coming out in Germany that's pretty fast, considering that it had already been like 40 years or something. I'm pretty sure I cannot think of a single example from the 21st century of a political piece of art having the same massive effect and actually making a difference the way that When the Wind Blows seems to have had. But just because the Cold War is over doesn't mean that we should throw this film away and not heed its message. To me, I think until nuclear warfare stops being a threat to any nation, we should continue to push this film out there and push its message out there and continue to listen to it and be reminded of the horrible effects of a nuke. What I mean is that until nukes are done, which I don't think they will be, I think nukes will probably be the destruction of the earth. I think we should keep this film relevant. This, even though this was made in the 80s and it has to do specifically with the Cold War, I still think this is a film that should maintain relevancy. Everyone should listen to this and be reminded of the catastrophic effects that a nuke has. It's not just a bomb. It destroys, it melts everything in its path, and it has the power to affect things that are hundreds upon hundreds of miles away from the detonation zone. I don't mean to sound like a dirty hippie, but there is genuinely no reason for any power to have access to that level of destruction. I understand war is always going to be present. We are never going to stop war. War is inevitable. It is as old as time. We're not going to cease war from existing. But please, we could cease the use of nukes. We could maybe stop that, at least. We're never gonna stop war, but please, for the love of God, can we stop nukes? We just watched Mad God last week. Mad God is what Earth is going to become if we don't fucking knock it off. While When the Wind Blows was made for, I think, a British audience or like a European audience, I still think it very heavily applies to America and Americans today. I have discussed James and Hilda being characters of misinformed adults who have the mindsets of naive children when it comes to the world that they're actually living in, but there is another caricature that I haven't talked about, and that is their son Ron. Now, like, we never see Ron, we don't even hear his voice, but we can tell what his perspective on the whole war thing is, just from the way that James responds to him on the phone.
Don't start singing. What do you mean we'll all go together when we go? It's not funny. Ron is not going to make an inner court or refuge. I remonstrated with him, but he was adamant. He says if London cops it, he'll cop it, and not to worry, Dad. It's an irresponsible attitude. I'm a bit disappointed in him adopting that attitude.
And what I've figured is this. James is the blind faith patriot who trusts the government no matter what. Hilda is the apolitical, I don't pay attention to politics crowd. And Ron is the person who says nothing ever happens. It is currently 2026, and it would be so incredibly easy to walk down any street of America and find at least one of these three archetypes in existence. In fact, you could probably find all three back to back. I have no doubt in my mind. So to me, that feels like a piece of evidence as to why this film is still relevant today, because we still have a lot of adults that act like James or Hilda or their son Ron. This film came out just about 40 years ago, and it's still important and relevant to society today. And it still has a message that we can take away and learn from today. In fact, if I had it my way, if I could control the public school system, I would require this film to be taught in history courses, just as a constant reminder of the catastrophic effects that using nukes has on a society, on a civilization. But I'm not in control of the public school system in America, and it'll never happen because the dumber and more sheltered people are, then the easier it is for the government to control them. So overall, not only is When the Wind Blows a very beautiful and artistic and very well done, very well crafted film, like as I said, the animation and the blend of a physical set with 2D animated characters living within it. Oh, I love that. I love the artistry of that so much. It's so pleasant to look at. But it is also a very important political film that I think still applies to us today. I thought this film was going to make me cry, and so I had always planned that I was going to avoid it, which sounds ridiculous compared to the fucked up shit that I've had to see for content on this channel. Like, oh no, this movie is gonna make me really sad and cry. I don't want to watch it. So let's talk about Tumbling Doll of Flesh. However, I'm very glad that I decided to not change what film was supposed to be done for this week, that I stuck to it and ended up watching When the Wind Blows. I'm very thankful for that now, because while it is dark and depressing and maybe mildly irritating on that first watch, for me anyway, I was literally sitting there in utter shock over the stupidity and naivety of James and Hilda. I felt more shock over their dumbness than I did sorrow towards what they were going through. Although later in my other two watches, I did start to make more room for how depressing and upsetting this is. Like, so yes, it is dark and it is depressing, but it's supposed to be, because it is depicting the truthful outcome of what would happen if a nuke goes off. And it's placing the effects of nuclear war onto characters of those who are very naive and ill-informed, who don't really understand the world about them. Like, this film is specifically made for people like James and Hilda to finally get the hint that nuke is bad. I think it's incredible in every way possible. The artistry of it, the narrative, how it showcases the outcome of nukes. I love this movie. I thought I would be super depressed and cry the whole time, but now I feel like this film needs to be required in public schools when we start talking about the Cold War. I know that's not going to happen. However, if I have a child and when they get to the age of learning about the Cold War, you know, as long as we're still teaching history in schools, then I will make a point to make sure that my child at least watches this movie, because I think that's important. I think it has a very important message and purpose behind it that we should not forget. Even though it was very timely in the 80s during the Cold War, it is still timely to us now, because that threat of nuclear bomb usage has never gone away. And I don't think we should forget or become detached from what happens when a nuke goes off. I think we should have a constant reminder of how catastrophic the outcome of that is. We shouldn't become detached from the knowledge of what damage a nuke can do on an entire civilization. This film should just serve as a constant reminder of that. And God, do I wish this was a requirement in public schools, but it won't be. So what tier am I gonna be giving When the Wind Blows? It's like really, really hard to not consider putting it within the A tier. How is this not an A tier movie? It's so well written, it's so well executed, and it has like such an important message. It has relevant information. I'm giving it the A tier with the potential to become S tier in the future, if I'm being completely honest. I really love the story. I think it does an incredibly effective job of getting its point across. In fact, it does such an effective job that I'm pretty sure this movie helped to end the Cold War. That's crazy. Name me another piece of art that has stopped literal war. This is more than deserving of the A tier. In fact, it's probably blasphemy that it doesn't go directly into the S tier, but just let me sit with it a while. I have a feeling over time I might proclaim this as to be an S tier film. And with that, we are done with yet another movie review. Thank you guys so much if you stuck around all the way until the very end. If you like this video, please make sure that you stab that like button. It is a free and easy way to help support this channel. Also, is there a film that you would like to hear my opinion on? Put it in the comments below and maybe you will see it show up in a future video. Also, did you just like this video so much that you would like to hear me ramble about more disturbing cinema, hidden gems on Tubi? In the summer, we're going to be discussing trauma films. I also cover some fantasy and horror. If you would just like to hear me ramble about more movies in general, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified every time I make a new upload, which new uploads are every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on the screen are some of my socials if you'd like to follow me. If you are in dire need of some additional STARGUTZZZ content, you can find it right here and in the description on the live channel. Now, this Friday and Sunday, I will not be going live. It is the final week of season 5 of Fish Tank. I'm being selfish. I'm not going live because of a really disgusting reality show that I'm so utterly obsessed with. But it's the final week. Live streams will continue next Friday, but there are plenty of past streams that you can watch on the live channel, again, if you just want that additional STARGUTZZZ content. And just one final thank you so much to all of you who stayed around until the very end. Our time here is precious, and the fact that you have used your time to sit here and listen to me ramble and scream about a depressing yet important political piece of cinema. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time more than you could ever know. And yeah, just thank you for sitting here and spending your time watching this video. It means a lot to me. So since I won't be in the live stream this evening, I will see you in the next video. But until then, please have a great night and stay safe out there.
It is estimated that the missiles will arrive in approximately 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
God almighty, Dux. There's
Do
only
not
3
leave
minutes
your
to go.
homes.
Oh dear, I'll just
Stay
get the washing
indoors
machine.
and take
Come
cover.
back, you stupid bitch, and
Lie
get in the
down.
shelter.
How dare